Alright, what is going on, guys? This is going to probably be my last video trying to explain this, okay? Because it's very, very hard, okay? A lot of what I'm going to explain to you is about buy models and sell models, okay? And what this helps me do is it helps me see where liquidity is. And it's the most important thing about the stock market, because if you don't know where liquidity is, then you're going to take the wrong fair value gaps, okay? Like, you're going to take the wrong fair value gaps, you're going to get squeezed through, you're just going to get totally obliterated. So you really need to know what model we're in, okay? And I'm gonna get a quick shout out to this guy on Twitter first. Again, before this guy even had a Twitter account, I was already teaching this stuff, but this guy shows it in a really nice way, and he labels it a little better than I do. And it's just, he posts these models every single day, so you can see like the buy side of the curve. He labels all of, like, the things that point out as a model. Okay, and this is all hindsight, but I'm going to teach you how to know what model we're in real time the best I can. And there's still some stuff that I struggle with. Like, there's still some times where I don't know what model we're in, okay? I have to wait and see what I kind of get for the reactions, okay? But this guy, he's definitely a good follow. Again, he posts these models a lot, so go give him a follow. His at is, let's see, _0DTE. So that's his Twitter. Go follow him. So my first video I kind of showed you guys, I look for this curve, okay? So if you look at what a buy model is, let me just go to ICT buy model, okay? What you're going to notice is it's a bunch of these boxes, and what happens is people start learning this model and they think, oh, we need the boxes, okay? We need to see some sort of accumulation, distribution, whatever it is, okay? And if you notice, okay, if we look at this, this is a sell model. Obviously, we hit liquidity, complete the sell model, we get this kind of curve. We get this curve. And again, a lot of this took me screen time. I've been doing this for 8 months, so I have a good feeling to know where, if we're in a sell model or buy model, okay? But if you notice right here, what do you notice? Well, we get consolidation up. First thing that hints that this could be a buy side of the curve, which, if you don't notice this already, this was a buy model into a sell model. The first thing that gives it away is how we slowly consolidate up into this fair value gap, okay? So if I'm looking at this from this perspective, okay, if I block out like this right here, okay? If I block out this, and let's say I don't see what's next. When I see this green candle right here, sorry, I don't want to show you this. When I see that green candle out there, I still do not know if this is a buy model yet, okay? Let's say we get this retracement right there. Okay, let's say we get something like this. We take liquidity just barely, something like this. Okay, that's a sign for good sign for longs. If I were to think this was bearish, then I'd want to see just a rejection, these two candles, and I want to see more downside. But because we get this giant green candle right after, I'm like, okay, we've been accumulating in this fair value gap for a while, so I'm not as confident that we're going to reject it, and we're already way down in the sell side, okay? And this was also a 4-hour fair value gap. It was like somewhere right here. It was a 4-hour fair value gap as well, so that's important to note. But once we start getting, like, as soon as I see this green candle, okay, your stop should be above this order block, okay? But as soon as I see a green candle like this, just rip through a fair value gap and just totally, completely annihilate and close over it, I don't even have to wait till I get stopped up here. 99% of the time, after we hit liquidity or bouncing in some fair value gap, I'm just going to get it right out then, okay? I don't really get squeezed that much more in fair value gaps. I still do, guys, okay? There's still times where I'm not completely sure, and I'll just take it anyways. But again, I've been getting so much better at what I used to know and what model we're in. So as soon as I see a green candle like this, where it just annihilates this, and even having volume turn on sometimes helps, because if you see like low volume, and then just a huge volume candle inside of fair value gap, sometimes that means, or usually that means, we're going to blow through it. Okay, so that kind of gives you a sign to go out. And what I use is I use footprint charts. So I see like the delta, which tells me the contract's bought and sold. So I know if there's a spike in volume, okay? And you can see we end up going to hit this high. And what am I thinking when we break this high, okay? Well, what I'm thinking now is because of this candle alone, just this candle alone, okay? Wouldn't it make sense to you that okay, this is a smart money reversal. See the magnitude of this move, and then just this, we just slowly annihilate this for value gap, and then we just get a huge structure shift. Okay, if you turn on volume, this would be major volume coming in right here. Wouldn't it just make sense to go up and hit this most recent high? Okay, you can, like, at this time you can kind of clearly see the sell side of the curve, and then we bounce in this. Knowing we bounce out of a 4-hour fair value gap, which I'm not going to go over and show you, but it's 4-hour fair value gap. Knowing we bounce out of that, and knowing that we have this huge displacement up, wouldn't it just make sense to get like keep accumulating and going up to this? If you get this candle like this, this is where I tried longing earlier, and although I didn't get the entry, I was like, okay, this is such a textbook candle where we have to bounce from it, even if we get here. Okay, and where's the target when we bounce from these fair value gaps? It's buy side. So the first target, if we bounce, would be right here. Okay, but if you look to your left, there's like nowhere to reject. Okay, so all these candles, all these fair value gaps are filled. There's like nowhere to reject. And that's one of the things that gives it away, but that's not one thing that helps, because sometimes there'll be like a giant fair value gap right here and we'll just blow through it. But in this case, kind of here, there's nothing really for us to reject. And we just get this huge displacement channel. We get another huge displacement candle with another fair value gap. So I'm like, okay, at this point, the chances of us going under these fair value gaps are very slim. Why? Because these have such great magnitude. So if we retrace these fair value gaps, you're like, okay, this is, you definitely long it. It's just textbook. And as long as price holds these fair value gaps, well, I'm pretty confident it's a buy model, because this is such an obvious high. Okay, and we already hit sell side, and we're bouncing out of a fair value gap. So these are kind of some of the things I look for. I look for a lot of like textbook displacement to be like, okay, this has to be fair value gap. This candle's got to work long. Okay, if you see a candle like this, and you're not thinking that's textbook with 2 order blocks beneath it, like, I don't know what to tell you. This is just a really textbook long right here inside the buy model, especially when we need this obvious high here. Okay, again, this is very important. And how do you know this is a sell model? Okay, so we can see we sell off, we start to get this curve, and you can kind of see they kind of have the same shape. So see how we get this curve, and then you can get another curve. Okay, the difference with this sell model, okay, and this is something that I picked up over time. We know we hit our internal buy side. We know we have a possibility of hitting up here, right? Okay, but you're not gonna, right when you buy side, you're like, okay, I know there's a possibility up here, but I'm mostly taking profits out here, and I'll leave a runner before the last lower low. So I'll probably leave my runner here. My stop would be there. Okay, when you see us break this with displacement, this is not good. Okay, when you see a candle like this, this is not good. Sometimes we do bounce off this, and you can see it was working for a little bit, and then just boom. As soon as you see this candle, you should immediately be like, okay, this is definitely a smart money reversal. We're not just gonna have a knife candle like this out of nowhere after we're hitting buy side without going down more. So here's kind of where I'm kind of like, okay, we have a huge knife here. I'm gonna see what happens. Okay, what happens? We retrace up a little bit. We get this tiny fair value gap. Okay, and if you notice, it's very, very tiny, but half of it's kind of a premium. To me, this wouldn't be enough. I want to see like an actual structure break. Okay, so I want to see a break below the last higher low. This isn't an obvious enough a low for me. I would want a new low created. So what happens is this new is created. It was equal lows, and I pointed out my stream. I pointed out this fair value gap. Okay, I didn't point out this one. The only reason I pointed out this one is because I saw we had the equal lows. Okay, and another thing I like to look for is equal lows. So I had these equal lows down here marked. Okay, so this was my final target, and I also had this fair value gap still marked. Okay, and what you're gonna see is I had this marked. I did not take it. I was like, okay, we have these equal lows down here. This knife looks a little sus. I think we're gonna reject this fair value gap, hit these equal lows. We end up doing that, and then as soon as we get this candle, okay, I did not know it was a sell model down here, but I had a good feeling it was a sell model down to these equal lows. Okay, so what I said is, okay, I'm gonna look for a short here. We never got it. Okay, I missed a short here. I wasn't paying attention. And then we get this candle, and I'm like, okay, I'm a little more confident this is a sell model. I'm going to short here now. Okay, but I had this drawn just in case. And what happens is, if your bias is wrong, what will likely happen is you'll see a bounce from here, but that doesn't matter if you're short because you should already be short from up here. What you're going to look for to long off this is a confirmation setup. So if you don't know what model this is, what I do is or if you're unsure, what I do is I have this drawn just in case. And if, let's say we get a low, a higher, high, higher low, and then boom, displacement over that high, so displacement over here, and then a retracement of the fair value gap, this would be my confirmation entry, okay? But I'm not entering this off of this fair value gap unless we get that. I'm not just going to slap this, because once we get this candle with a lot of volume, I'm not too confident, okay? And we're starting to get the curve. This is like halfway through the model. So I'm like, okay. And then once I really know, it's once we break this fair value gap. So if you notice with over here, we didn't have any fair value gaps really to reject. Okay, we just kind of went right through. But on this side, it's kind of a little harder to know because you have a fair value gap here and you have a fair value gap here. And if you're bullish, you'd want to see these hold. So the second you see us knife through these fair value gaps, that's often a really good sign to me. It's like, okay, it's starting to give us that curvy look, the curvy sell model look, and we're starting to hit down here. Okay, if you notice, if you draw the boxes that I kind of showed you, we have like a accumulation here. Let me just make this a different color. Okay, we have a little accumulation here. Here's your smart money reversal. If you notice right here, there's not a single green candle in this. There's only this order block here, so I'd count that maybe as a box. Okay, but there's not really any more accumulation, okay? If I wanted a short entry there, we never would have gotten it. I literally said I was going to short there, but we never got it. So the second I see this candle through an old fair value gap, I'm like, okay, this looks pretty bearish. And then dumping through this fair value gap just confirms my bias. And there's still a 15-point move. Once you go below this, there's still 15-point of magnitude that you can still enter. Although ICT says ICT is usually in from up here. And watching these candles, if you get up and up here, you're gonna have to watch the candles, okay? You're not just gonna know it's automatically sell model. You're gonna have to watch the candles. So if you don't see fair value gaps being created, if you see a bounce and then a high, lower high, the thing I just showed you with this trend change, that's when I would really try to get out. But throughout this whole kind of area, we do not have that, okay? So that's the only time we'll ever think about getting out. Okay, let's say you were short from up here. Your target was down here, and you sold all targets, you had a runner, okay? If I was on a runner at this point, I would want to see this hold, okay? So I wouldn't know this is a buy model yet. I don't want to see this hold. The second I see this candle, this candle go like this, I'm out, okay? Just when you get a super bullish candle after hitting liquidity in this fair value gap, you would just be out. And let's say there was still sell side below, okay? Then this should reject if there's sell side below. But sometimes what I see is I see sell side and then I see another sell side down here. But my main target's really this sell side, okay? So I'm only expecting this sell side to hit, but I'm leaving a runner just in case this one gets hit, okay? This is kind of extra to me. So the second I see a fair value gap not get respected, if I do think there is sell side below, I'm just going to get out. So in this situation, again, this is going to take a lot of screen time. I'm monitoring this fair value gaps. I'm monitoring the trades over here. You got to think to yourself, if you were in a short position up here, would you re-short at any of these levels? And if the answer is yes, then that's probably a good idea to see in, because I would re-short here, okay? After we displacement down, I would short here. So if you're in short from this fair value gap right here, why would you get out yet, okay? So again, you kind of get this curve. You end up hitting sell side and that. So this example right here, okay? So now we know that we have this fair value gap right here, okay? Once we hit sell side, you're not supposed to take this fair value gap. Now you start looking for a buy model, okay? What do you notice? So we get these candles right here, and when I see these candles, there's like a buzzer going off in my head. I'm like, oh, okay. This is a lot of displacement, a lot of volume coming. This is like a textbook ICT long. What happens? We hit my long entry, which I did enter. We never end up hitting buys. We never end up hitting here, so you would have gotten stopped to break even, okay? This is just one of those trades where you either would have taken your 5 points or whatever, you would have gotten stopped for break even. I don't really know. But again, to me, I'm like, okay, this could be the start of a buy model, okay? So I'm not thinking it's a buy model yet. But the second I see a candle like this, that's like, okay, this could be a buy model. I'm belonging here. And we get all the way up here, and then you just get stopped at break even. So this is rare, I would say. But a fair value gap, let's say this never knifed right here, okay? You'd kind of monitor if it was a buy model to the reaction of this fair value gap. So even if you're not supposed to short this fair value gap. Why? Because we already hit liquidity. But let's say we get like a pretty hefty rejection off of this. I would probably get out of my longs just because my bias is probably wrong. Okay, so if I was in a long position, I'd want to see us squeeze through this, and I'd obviously be out some of these highs, but I'd expect us to squeeze through this. So the second we get this candle and then this candle, that's just telling me, okay, we're definitely, that's so much displacement. We really displaced on this low. That probably means it's another sell model to this low, okay? And we end up hitting this low. Okay, so it's really mainly like the type of candles that we get. When you see candles that displace to this magnitude inside a bullish fair value gap that you're expecting to hold, that's usually when I know it's kind of turning into a sell model. It was the same thing with this, although there's no fair value gaps over here. But the second we get these green candles, like these really hefty ones, where it's like, okay, this is a textbook long setup, that's kind of when I know. And it doesn't really matter what the higher time frame is showing you in this situation, because if I look at the higher time frame, okay, this was like a clear order block. Okay, so if I delete all this stuff, this was a clear order block, and someone pointed out to me, I'm like, I don't think we're gonna reject it. Okay, I know it's a clear order block, but the smaller time frame just showed like a textbook long setup to me, and I was like, okay, there's no way we're gonna reject this. So just that's kind of the thing I look out for. Okay, and I'm gonna show you one other thing. Right here, okay. So what happens on this? We end up completing the sell model again. We take liquidity. Okay, so would you short any of these fair value gaps? No. Although they could still work, you don't short them. Okay, the only way they would still work is if your bias is wrong. Okay, but at this point, when would I know this is a buy model? Well, you kind of, right here, you're kind of just watching. You see us take these equal lows. You're not really doing anything at this time because there's no long setup, obviously. Okay, where's the first like candle with a good fair value gap in it? It's right here. Okay, as soon as I see a candle like this, again, alert's going off in my head. I'm like, okay, this is a pretty big candle. This looks like a textbook long. Where do we have any equal highs above? Do we have any equal lows above? Do we have any really obvious high above? And in this case, we have these equal highs above. So I'm like, okay, this looks like a nice strong liquidity. I know we have this fair value gap here. Worst that can happen is I get 5-point handle move out of this fair value gap and just get stopped to break even. Okay, but ideally you want to see this squeeze through because, again, you're getting that curve. Okay, and you just see this hefty candle. Usually when you get a candle like this with a good volume, usually what happens is you squeeze through this. Okay, so we get a good candle with another good volume here, which was also a breaker block. I think it was on a different, it was like, I guess this one I would consider a breaker block, but it was a breaker block. Okay, it was a fair value gap. Okay, as soon as you see that, it's like, how can you not long that? And if you're saying that to yourself and you see some obvious equal highs, equal lows, no matter what, even if there's a fair value gap to the left, likely that means there's a buy model, okay? But it has to be like a textbook long setup, okay? If there's no displacement, like, look, right here, there's tons of displacement, okay? Right here, there's good displacement. If there's not displacement, well, then I want to be sure if it's a buy model. I don't want to see a candle like this, okay? And again, as soon as you saw this, I'm like, okay, this is just a ton of displacement. We had to bounce off here. There's just so much volume. There's so many contracts that probably weren't filled. Come back down to it. Again, where's your target? Your target's right here. And this is another mini buy model. And I'm saying to myself, worst that can happen is if you long in this fair value gap, okay? Let's say you long in discount. Worst that can happen, you get like a 5-handle move, you sell some, you get stopped, the rest of break even. Okay, this is what happened in this scenario. So what ended up happening was we ended up hitting this high, which would have been a good scale target because it was the last obvious high before right here. As you can see, there's no other distinguishable high besides this one right here. Okay, then you would probably get stopped to break even. The second I see this knife right here, I'm not bullish yet, or I'm not bearish yet, because usually when you see a random move like this, that going back inside a fair value gap, usually that's just inducement. Okay, and the fact that we got all this huge displacement above just is like, okay, I'm bullish as long as we hold these candles. The minute we go under these very, very, very bullish candles, I'm bearish. The only time this does not apply is at open. At open, we usually get these Judas swings below this, and then we pump. But throughout the day, if we have a candle setup like this, I am bullish as long as we kind of hold this setup. And it has to be a lot of volume, hefty green candles, and I'm bullish as long as we hold that. Okay, so we start getting this curve kind of, And I'm not longing this, like I'm not slapping this. The second we see this in live time, I'm like, okay, we have a bearish fair value gap here, but a bullish one here. I'm gonna wait to see what happens. Okay, where would I long? Where would I look to long? If you know the answer, if you remember what I said about, if you remember what I said about, what fair value gap was it? This fair value gap. If you remember what I said about this fair value gap, same thing applies to this. If you were already in long, I just manage my position here. So maybe I scale some just in case we reject. But what I ideally want to see, if this is a higher time frame model and we are holding these candles, the second we get like, boom, right here, I'm just going to kind of do a black thing real quick. The second we get, when we get this candle, I'm still like, if I have bearish bias, I'm still bearish at this, on this candle. I'm still bearish on this candle. Okay. Third candle, this still looks bearish. Okay. Second we get this candle, I'm like, okay, this fair value gap isn't being respected at all. That's when I would really get out, even though your stop loss should be up there. And because we get big candle, little smaller, even smaller, then just a big one again, this just shows me that this is not really being respected. So I'm like, okay, this definitely looks bullish. We're squeezing through this fair value gap. Now I look for like a breaker block entry or forward block entry, whatever. Okay, so we end up bouncing off this breaker block. It's like we were traced in it like twice. We end up rebouncing off of this one right there. We held this one, obviously. And it's also, again, once you see us break above this fair value gap, if the bias truly is bullish, you want to see these bearish fair value gaps turn at the support. So in this situation, what do you see us break above this. Now you just want us to hold above this. But the second it goes back under, you immediately flip bearish again, okay? So this is a little more advanced topic, but you want to see the hold, okay? And because we're holding these candles, which are very, very bullish to me on a smaller time frame, no matter what the higher time frame is doing, as long as we hold these, I know where liquidity is at the moment. Where does liquidity rest when we bounce out of fair value gap? At the highs, okay? So this would be the last high. It's a pretty obvious high, as you can tell. We end up hitting the highs. Then we hit them one more time. And then we just completely dump. So that would have been your target. Yes, you could have left runners to up here. But, again, this is a more than enough move for me. This is like almost a 30-point move. I'm not sure, like, yeah, you could hold runners up there, and then the second you see like kind of a bearish candle, I'd get out. To me, okay, I probably would have gotten out right here. So see this giant knife in this fair value gap? I get that we didn't go below the swing low. Oh, and it's like, oh, you really shouldn't stop out there. But I would probably be out on this because I've seen a lot of times where we get a candle like this through this fair value gap and it just turns into a sell model. Okay, and what you can see happened is it ended up being a sell model. We just hit buy side liquidity and then dumped again, and then we ended up hitting this low, which was kind of interesting. But again, monitor the old fair value gaps. If you see old fair value gaps saying retrace through, and then you see us go back to them and we hold them as like the opposite support or resistance, like whatever it wasn't before, then that probably likely means we're in a sell model. So look for the next obvious low to hit. Usually it's like at the end of some curve. I really like to look for the curve. But yeah, that's what I would say. Like right here, you can see we start getting that curve, right? And it's like, okay, it does look like a sell model. Okay, but where's the fair value gap to short? There's obviously a tiny fair value gap right here. Right here. It's also an order block. But I mean, that's very, very, it's like a 1 point fair value gap. The other thing I would say about it is you should have already been short from this one up here. Okay, maybe even this one, because we already dumped below this. This was kind of sloppy, I will admit. But like, if you're trying to short the third fair value gap after not getting an entry in the first two, that's likely chasing anyways. And although it ended up working out in the end, and it was a sell model, you don't really want to re-enter here. You just want to kind of manage your position here. So like, if it went above this order block, then I just get out. So again, I hope this really explains a lot. I really just you got to look for these kind of curves. Okay, right here right here, when I'm going to draw a back box. This is the last example I'm going to explain to you, okay? This was yesterday in the 15-minute. I had this fair value gap drawn, okay? So I had this drawn. I was not sure at the time, are we going to reject it or are we not? But I was bullish until we hit it, okay? When we hit it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to see what happens in this fair value gap. If we get a short setup off it, I'll take it. But we never got a short setup off it. Again, a short setup means on the 15-minute, we go to the 1 minute and we look for a structure break in the 1 minute with a fair value gap and premium. Okay, we never get that. So the second I see this, I'm not bearish yet, okay? As soon as I see this candle and then even this candle look fervent, I'm like, okay, now that we're above this fair value gap, I'm starting to see the curve a little better, okay? I saw we took liquidity. Now I'm like, okay, this is definitely a possibility now that we're above the most major fair value gap, and you can see this fair value gap is in premium, so it was a good fair value gap to short if you're a bearish bias. Now we're above that fair value gap. I'd want to see this fair value gap hold for support to kind of confirm my bias. And what happens is we end up holding it for support, and then we bounce off it again. At the same time, stopping out these guys, these longs barely, but we stopped them out. And you can kind of see if you draw the wick from this low, we went a few ticks under and they stopped them out. And then that's when you're like, okay, well, I see the clear curve. Looks like accumulation here. Looks like accumulation here. Where's the market if you see like a textbook long setup and accumulation? Well, it's at the next obvious high. And the reason why I didn't mark this one is because I feel like this is the most obvious one. I mean, this is obvious, but because this is so close and it's like the most obvious in the next like day, like see there's like a whole day difference between this one and this one. That would have been my target. We end up hitting this one too. We never hit this one, unfortunately. But again, if you know what a cup and handle is, okay, this is really one of the stupidest patterns in my opinion ever. It looks like a cup, and it's kind of like, where does the cup complete? Okay, does it complete here or does it complete here? Well, if it completes here, then you're gonna have a really deformed cup. Okay, so the brim of the cup, the shape of the cup and all of this is just kind of look weird. But if you see the cup right here, this looks like a more perfect cup. So it's kind of like curve. And sometimes what happens is we start to get the cup, then we retrace down here even, and then we end up going up. Again, the algos will do that sometime and throw you off, but we know where the buy side still is. And a lot of it is just reacting the moment. So the second you see this fair value gap traded through, you'd want to see us use a support. The second you see us use this as support, like we get this candle, you'd be like, okay, this is definitely a buy model now. And you still have like 20 more points you can make to get to it if you didn't know down here. But chances are you're already going to see a long setup down here. Okay, why would you even long here in the first place? Well, if you know where price likes to retrace to, you know it likes to retrace to the premium. So while we're in discount at the time, it's not bad to look for longs in discount. Okay, you might not know it's going to go up here when you're getting in here, so you might leave a runner and not full position here. But the second I know it's a buy model is when I kind of see something like this, like an old fair value gap traded through, just a beefy green candle that gets close to the highs but doesn't quite touch them, then retrace, something like that. But that's kind of my advice for that. So we end up wicking up, hitting it for CPI, and then I was looking for short setups. I took a short setup on the one. It was somewhere around here. I did take a long setup to the equal highs today to complete that buy model. But again, this is going to tell you where the market wants to go. I think this is one of the most important things, and this is going to take you a lot of screen time. Okay, this did not come easy. And what a lot of people think is, oh, you have to know it's a buy model before it even like forms. When I find out it's a buy model, it's usually like when we get candles like this, and I'm like, okay, we traded through this fair value gap. Now I know for sure. But you could still get it long here in the lower time frame. There's still going to be long subs because we're in discount on the higher time frame as whole. But again, hope this video helped you guys. If you want to, again, I don't know if there's any spots left in my Patreon, but you can check in the Discord. I live trade every day, and I kind of tell you guys like live when I know it's truly a buy model. And I'll kind of point out, and this kind of helps me where the liquidity is. And why do you want to know where liquidity is? You want to know where it is because you want to know that's where the market's going, right? So again, you don't have to draw those fancy boxes. Okay, sometimes you're just gonna waterfall or pump up with no boxes. Sometimes you're just like today in the 1 minute. You can see we've just waterfall down. We didn't really get any distribution or accumulation down here. So again, I don't really recommend drawing the boxes, but you just want to look for short setups on the sell side of the curve. The more short setups you get, the better chance it's probably a sell model. And again, you're kind of just reacting to price. So if you get in here, okay, your stop would be if we got a trend break and form bullish structure, which we never do. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions. This is probably going to be my last video I make of this, but just keep watching for this stuff. This did not come easy to me. This is just kind of something that I started learning just watching myself. So yeah, hope you guys have a good night and peace.